I still remember the sound of that knock. It wasn't loud, yet it echoed through my bones like a memory that refused to stay buried. It was late afternoon. The golden light from the porch spilled across my living room floor, and I was folding my husband's old flannel shirts I hadn't touched since he passed 7 years ago, when the knock came again, slow, deliberate. My hands trembled. Somehow, before I even reached the door, my heart whispered a name I hadn't said aloud in 35 years. Daniel. I hadn't seen my son since the night he ran away at 17. He'd left behind nothing but a shattered window and a note soaked in rainwater that said, "Don't look for me." And I hadn't. Maybe because I was too proud or too broken or too afraid of what I might find. When I opened the door that day, I saw a man who looked like Daniel and yet didn't. His eyes were the same sea gray as his father's, but colder, sharper. His smile didn't reach them. He was taller now, broader, dressed in a crisp black coat, carrying a suitcase that looked expensive. "Hello, Mother," he said, like the word itself was a test. My throat closed up. I wanted to pull him into my arms, but something about the way he stood there stopped me. He wasn't here for warmth. He was here for something else. I can't believe it," I whispered. "After all these years, 35, he interrupted flatly. 35 years, Mother, I counted. He walked in without waiting to be invited. His shoes clicked against the wooden floor, leaving wet prints from the rain outside. I followed him like a ghost, unsure whether to cry or ask where he'd been. The house suddenly felt smaller. The ticking clock on the wall seemed louder. Daniel's eyes scanned the pictures on the mantel, his father's smile frozen in a frame, my younger self holding a baby with a toothless grin. He picked it up, brushed his thumb across the glass, then set it down carefully, as if the memory disgusted him. "You kept everything," he murmured, "even after what happened." "What happened?" I asked, confused. He turned, his gaze cutting through me. "You really don't remember, do you?" I didn't know what he meant. I only knew that my son, the boy I once rocked to sleep, was standing before me like a stranger filled with quiet fury. I tried to reach out. "Daniel, please, talk to me." He took a deep breath and forced a smile. "Oh, we'll talk. I've waited a long time for this." Those words sent a chill down my spine. The evening stretched on in uneasy silence. I made tea, though my hands shook so badly I nearly spilled it. He sat across the table, watching me like a man studying a crime scene. When I asked where he'd been all these years, he only said, "Everywhere you didn't look." He said he'd traveled, worked, learned things about me, about our family that I'd kept hidden. I told him I didn't understand. His eyes narrowed, and for a second I saw the teenager who used to glare at me before slamming his bedroom door. Then he asked the question that turned my blood to ice. "Why did you lie about my father's death?" I froze. "What?" He leaned forward. "You told everyone he died in a car accident, but that wasn't true, was it?" My breath caught. "Of course it was true, your father." "Don't," he snapped. "I know what happened, Mother. I've seen the files." "Files?" My heart pounded so hard I thought it might burst. I had no idea what he was talking about. I remembered the night his father, Robert, had died, how the sheriff came to the door with that look no one forgets. But Daniel's face told me he believed something else entirely. "What files?" I whispered. "The ones that prove you weren't some grieving widow," he said quietly. "You were the reason he's dead." For a moment, the world tilted. The air left my lungs. "Daniel, that's not true. I loved your father. Did you?" His voice cracked with bitterness. "Because, according to the police report I found, there were fingerprints on the car's steering wheel, yours, and you never even had a license." I felt sick. That can't be right, can't it? He stood, pacing, his anger rising with every word. "He was found at the bottom of Miller's Creek. Drunk, they said. But they never explained why the passenger door was open, or why your bracelet was found in the mud beside the car." My knees went weak. I clutched the edge of the table to keep from falling. That bracelet, I had lost it that same night when I went looking for Robert after our fight. But how did Daniel know this? He leaned over me, his face inches from mine. "You killed him, didn't you? And then you sent me to live with relatives while you cleaned up the mess." "No," I cried. "Daniel, I swear I didn't." "Liar!" he shouted, slamming his hand on the table. The teacup shattered, spilling dark liquid across the wood. The sound jolted me back to the present. I realized tears were streaming down my cheeks. I wanted to scream, to defend myself, to tell him the truth as I knew it, but even I wasn't sure anymore what that truth was. After all these years, the details of that night were blurred by grief and guilt. "Daniel," I whispered, "your father's death broke me. I'd never hurt him. Please believe me." He stepped back, breathing heavily. "We'll see," he said coldly. "I didn't come here for forgiveness. I came for the truth. And if you won't tell me, I'll find it myself." He turned and walked down the hallway, his old room, the one I'd left untouched for decades. I heard the door creak open, dust falling like ash from the ceiling. He was going back into the past I'd tried so hard to seal away. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat by the window, listening to the rain. I could hear him moving around upstairs, footsteps, drawers opening, boxes being dragged out from under the bed. The sound of a life being unraveled. Every creak made my heart ache. I wanted to believe my son had come home because he missed me, because time had softened him. But I could see it now. He had come back not as a son, but as a judge, a jury, maybe even an executioner. And the worst part? Deep down, in the place I never dared look, I feared he might be right about me. The rain didn't stop that night. It came harder, drumming against the roof like the heavens themselves wanted to wash away my sins. I stayed awake on the couch, clutching an old photograph of Daniel when he was 5, his cheeks round, his hair golden in the summer sun. Back then, he used to call me Mama, not Mother. The way he said it tonight, cold, sharp, made it feel like I'd already lost him all over again. Sometime after midnight, I heard the floorboards groan upstairs. Daniel's shadow passed the landing. He was still awake, rummaging through his past like a detective who'd already chosen his suspect. When I finally heard his door close, I allowed myself a breath, but it was shallow, uneven. The house that once sang with laughter now echoed with ghosts. The next morning, I made breakfast, bacon, eggs, the way he used to like it. He came down the stairs in silence, his face unreadable, eyes red from lack of sleep. He didn't look at me when he sat down, just muttered, "You still cook like you used to." "I wasn't sure if you'd eat," I said softly. He took a bite, then looked up, and for a fleeting second I saw my son, the boy who used to steal pancakes off my plate and grin, but the moment vanished as quickly as it came. "I found something," he said, his tone turning icy again. My hand froze midair. "What? What did you find?" He reached into his coat pocket and placed a small box on the table. I recognized it instantly, the wooden jewelry box Robert had given me on our 10th anniversary. I hadn't opened it in years. Daniel flipped it open, and inside lay a folded letter, yellowed with age. "Found it behind the paneling in my room," he said. "You hid it well." My chest tightened. That letter, I thought I had burned it. My fingers trembled as he slid it toward me. "Read it," he said. I unfolded the fragile paper. The handwriting was Robert's, bold, hurried, smeared at the edges. "If anything happens to me, it won't be an accident. She's been distant, angry. I think she knows about her sister and me. I fear she'll do something reckless." The room spun. I couldn't breathe. My heart screamed, "No, no, that's not true." Daniel's voice cut through my thoughts. "You see, he knew. He knew you'd find out he was cheating with Aunt Grace." My hands shook violently. "Daniel, listen to me, Grace, and your father, yes. There was something once, but it ended long before that night." I forgave him. He leaned forward. "Did you? Or did you decide to forgive him after you killed him?" I slammed my palm on the table. "Don't you dare!" My voice cracked like thunder. "I loved that man, even when he didn't deserve it. I found that letter years ago, and I burned it. I thought I did. I didn't want you or anyone to know. I wanted to protect your memory of him." He stood, pacing again, running his hands through his hair. "Protect me, or protect yourself?" Tears blurred my vision. "You think I've lived peacefully all these years? You think I sleep at night without hearing his car sinking into that creek?" I turned away, clutching the edge of the counter. "He was drunk that night. We'd fought about Grace. I told him to leave before he did something stupid. He drove off, and I followed on foot. I tried to stop him, Daniel. I tried. When I found the car, it was already underwater." He didn't answer. He just stared at me with that same hollow anger that had burned in him since the day he disappeared. "Finally," he said quietly, "then why didn't you call for help?" I froze. Because I couldn't. Because panic had swallowed me whole. Because seeing Robert's lifeless face pressed against the glass had broken something inside me forever. But I couldn't tell Daniel that. Not yet. "I don't remember," I lied weakly. He shook his head, disgusted. "You remember. You just can't admit it." He walked toward the door, grabbing his coat. "I'm going to town. I need some air. Daniel, please." He turned back. "Don't wait up." The door slammed behind him. The sound echoed through the house like a sentence being passed. The hours dragged. The rain finally stopped, but the silence that followed was worse. I wandered through the house, every corner whispering memories, his laughter, his father's voice, Grace's perfume lingering in the air from decades ago. I opened the closet in my bedroom. searching for the box where I'd hidden the few old papers I'd kept, insurance forms, letters, photos. I wanted to prove to him somehow that I wasn't the monster he thought I was. But when I opened the box, my stomach dropped. Someone had already been there. The papers were scattered, the photos bent, and something was missing, the police report. The one I'd requested quietly years ago, hoping it would give me closure. He'd taken it. I sat on the edge of the bed, shaking. He was digging for answers, and I was running out of lies to hide behind. By the time night fell again, Daniel hadn't returned. I called his name out on the porch, but only the wind answered. Fear clawed at my chest. I dialed the local diner, then the motel down the road. No one had seen him. At midnight, headlights cut across the window. I rushed to the door. His car pulled up, splattered with mud, headlights still on. But when he stepped out, something in his face had changed. He looked calm, too calm. He walked in, dripping wet, holding a file in his hand. "I went to the county archives," he said softly. "They keep accident records there. You know what I found?" I couldn't speak. He dropped the folder onto the table, papers spilling out like open wounds. The brake line on Dad's car was cut, cleanly, not torn, not rusted, cut. My blood ran cold. "And guess what else?" he continued. "The mechanic who serviced the car before that night, he was your friend, wasn't he? Carl Jennings. He died 3 years later. Heart attack, they said. Convenient, isn't it?" I sank into the chair, trembling uncontrollably. "Daniel, please. You don't understand." "Oh, I understand perfectly," he said, voice low and venomous. "You wanted him gone. You wanted his affair buried, and you got it. You think because you raised me, you can fool me too?" "Daniel," I cried, "you're wrong." He slammed his fist on the table. "I buried my father while you played the grieving widow. You sent me away to live with relatives because you couldn't stand my face reminding you of him." My heart shattered. "I sent you away because I was afraid, Daniel. Afraid you'd hate me when you found out what happened that night. But I didn't kill him, I swear on my soul." He turned to leave, his voice shaking. "Then prove it, Mother. Prove it before I do." And with that, he walked out into the rain again, leaving me alone with the ghosts, the guilt, and a truth I no longer trusted myself to believe. The next morning arrived gray and bitter, like even the sky had grown weary of us. I barely slept every time I closed my eyes. I saw Robert's face under water, and Daniel's eyes staring through me with that same cold accusation. I sat by the window, clutching my shawl around my shoulders, listening to the soft tick of the old clock that once marked our family dinners, our laughter, our life before everything fractured. The phone rang just after dawn. My heart leapt. It could be Daniel. But it wasn't. It was Sheriff Miller, his voice worn and uncertain. "Mrs. Henderson, I think you might want to come down to the station. Your son stopped by last night." My chest tightened. "What do you mean, stopped by?" He hesitated. He asked about the old case. "Your husband's accident. Said he's reopening it on his own, digging into the archives. We told him the case was closed, but he's persistent. He said he has new evidence." I felt faint. "Evidence?" "Yes, ma'am. Something about a confession letter. Said he'd be back later today. My knees gave out. A confession letter? There was no letter, unless someone forged one, or worse, unless Daniel had written one himself to frame me. "I'll come by," I said weakly and hung up. The drive to town felt endless. The road twisted through the woods, the same one Robert used to take every night to his workshop by the creek. Every turn was heavy with memory. The trees were bare now, their branches like skeleton fingers scratching the sky. I could almost hear Daniel's voice as a boy, laughing from the back seat, asking, "Mama, are ghosts real?" When I reached the sheriff's office, Miller met me at the door. He was older now, softer around the edges, but his eyes still carried that quiet pity I remembered from years ago. "Anna," he said gently, "you don't have to get involved in this. Sometimes digging up old graves just brings pain." "My son is the one digging," I whispered. "If I don't stop him, he'll bury us both." He sighed. "He found your husband's watch in the evidence box. It was sealed, never claimed. Said there was something strange about the clasp, tiny scratch marks like someone had tried to pry it open." My breath caught. Robert's watch. I remembered that watch. Clearly it was his pride. Gold-plated, engraved with, "To Robert Love always." I had given it to him the Christmas before he died. I stared at the sheriff. "What did Daniel say about it?" That maybe you hid something inside it." "Inside?" I shook my head. "That's absurd." But as I stood there, fragments of memory flickered. Robert had come home that night wearing that watch. We'd fought, words flying like knives. I remember him grabbing his keys, shouting something about, "You'll regret this," before slamming the door. I hadn't seen the watch again since. "Do you still have it?" I asked. Miller nodded. Daniel took it with him, said he'd show it to a friend who works in forensics over in Pine Ridge. My stomach turned. If Daniel found something, anything, he'd twist it into proof. I left the station shaking. The rain had returned, soft and cold, coating the windshield in a blur. My reflection stared back at me, pale, lined, haunted. I barely recognized the woman I'd become. When I got home, Daniel's car was already in the driveway. He was sitting on the porch steps, drenched, the gold watch dangling from his hand. I stepped out of the car. "Daniel, please, we need to talk." He didn't look at me. "It's funny," he said quietly. "You spent all these years acting like the past was gone, but it's been here the whole time, buried under floorboards, hidden in letters, locked inside a broken watch." He looked up, and I saw something glinting in his palm. A small folded note, yellowed, brittle. "I opened it," he said. There was a message inside. Dad's handwriting. My blood froze. What did it say? He read slowly, voice trembling. "If you find this, tell Daniel the truth before it's too late. I can't live with the lies anymore." My heart collapsed inside my chest. No, that's not possible. He wrote it, Mother," Daniel shouted, standing to his full height, water dripping from his coat. "You drove him to it. Whatever happened that night, it wasn't an accident. You and Aunt Grace destroyed him." Tears welled in my eyes. Daniel, your father wasn't the man you think he was. He wasn't innocent, he scoffed. So now he's the villain? Listen to me, I cried. He lied to me. For years. About Grace, about the business, about money he'd stolen from the company. That's what we fought about that night, not love, not jealousy, the money. He was going to flee, Daniel. Leave us both behind. I tried to stop him, that's all. But when I reached the creek, it was too late. He stared at me, speechless. The storm howled around us. I saw the car in the water, I whispered. I ran to it. I tried to open the door, but the current was too strong. I screamed his name until my throat bled. Then I saw something floating by the watch. I picked it up and I kept it because it was the only piece of him I had left. Daniel's eyes flickered with confusion, then doubt. For a moment, I thought I saw his anger falter, but then he shook his head violently. No, you're twisting it. You're lying again just like before. Daniel, please, I sobbed. You think I could live with myself if I had killed him? I would have confessed long ago. He turned away, fists clenched. You'll say anything to save yourself. He walked toward his car. I ran after him, grabbing his arm. If you don't believe me, then let's go together to the creek. Right now, I'll show you where it happened. You'll see. He hesitated, eyes narrowing. The creek? Yes. You need to see the truth for yourself. He stared at me for a long, silent moment, rain dripping from his chin. Then he nodded. Fine. Let's go. The drive was quiet except for the sound of rain and the wipers squeaking rhythmically. The road grew narrower as we neared the old bridge. The woods seemed darker than before, heavy with memory. When we stopped, Daniel got out first, flashlight in hand. The air was sharp, cold, smelling of wet earth and rust. I followed, my cane sinking slightly into the mud. There, I said softly, pointing toward the bank. That's where the car went under. He shone the light across the water. The creek had changed over the years, narrower, calmer. But I still saw it as it was that night, wild and merciless. Daniel stepped closer. You said you saw the car? Yes. My voice trembled. I ran into the water. It was dark. I slipped on the rocks. I tried to open the door, but I stopped. Something glimmered in the mud. Daniel noticed it too. He crouched, brushing away the dirt. It was metal, small, rusted. He wiped it clean. A car key. Look at this, he whispered. It's his key ring. I covered my mouth. After all these years, he turned it over and froze. A second key was attached, newer, different. What is this? He murmured. I stared, dread creeping through me. I don't know. He looked up, eyes wide. It's a safety deposit key, Bank of Crestview. And in that instant, I knew the truth we were about to uncover wasn't about a murder at all. It was about something far darker that had been waiting beneath the surface all along. Daniel held that small silver key in his palm, like it was the missing piece to everything he'd ever wanted to prove. The rain fell harder, soaking us both, but neither of us moved. That key, it wasn't just metal, it was a ghost, a secret his father had buried, waiting for this very storm to drag it back into our lives. He turned to me, his voice trembling with disbelief and accusation. "Why would Dad have this, Mother? What's he keeping in a deposit box that you never mentioned?" I could barely speak. I didn't know. I swear to you, I didn't." Daniel laughed bitterly, shaking his head. "You didn't know. That's your answer to everything, isn't it? You didn't know he was cheating. You didn't know he stole from the company. You didn't know he died suspiciously. Now you didn't know about this." My heart ached. "Daniel, please, just listen." He shoved the key into his pocket. "I'm done listening. Tomorrow, I'm going to Crestview. If you're hiding something, I'll find it there." Before I could stop him, he turned and stormed back toward the car, leaving me standing in the rain, the cold seeping into my bones. I stared at the creek one last time before following him, the dark water whispering secrets I no longer had the strength to face. That night, I couldn't bring myself to sleep. I sat by the fireplace, the flames flickering against old photo frames that lined the mantel. Robert's smile looked different now, almost mocking. In the corner of the room, Daniel's childhood baseball glove rested beside his suitcase. For a brief, foolish moment, I wanted to pick it up and smell the leather again, to remember him as my little boy, the boy who used to fall asleep in my lap, not the man who now saw me as his enemy. The clock struck midnight. I heard movement upstairs, Daniel's footsteps again, drawers opening. I sighed, exhausted. "He'll never stop," I whispered to the fire. "He'll never rest until he ruins us both." But as I listened, I realized the sounds weren't coming from his room. They were coming from the attic. My heart froze. I climbed the stairs slowly, my knees aching, every creak of the wood echoing louder than my heartbeat. The attic door was slightly ajar, light spilling through the crack. I pushed it open. Daniel was kneeling beside an old trunk, one I hadn't opened in 30 years. Inside, scattered across the floor, were yellowed letters, photographs, and a faded ledger book with my husband's name on it. "What are you doing?" I gasped. He didn't look at me. "Finding the truth." He flipped through the ledger, his eyes scanning fast. "Company records," he muttered. "Dates, transactions. Wait." He frowned. "Why are there withdrawals made after his death?" I froze. "What?" He turned the page toward me. "See for yourself. 2 weeks after his accident, $10,000 withdrawn from the account under your signature." My knees gave out. I clutched a chair for balance. "No, Daniel, that can't be true." He stood, holding the ledger out like a weapon. "Then explain this." I took the book with trembling hands, the faded ink blurring before my eyes. It was my signature, or at least, it looked like it, but I had never made those withdrawals. "I didn't sign these," I whispered. "Someone forged it." "Forged it?" Daniel sneered. "Mother, there's no one else. You were the only one with access. You said yourself you wanted to protect me. Maybe you thought stealing the money would make things right?" Tears welled in my eyes. "Daniel, please, listen to me. I was broken after your father died. I couldn't even walk into a bank without shaking. I swear I didn't take that money." He threw his hands up. "Then who did?" Before I could answer, lightning flashed outside, followed by the deep rumble of thunder. The power flickered, plunging us into darkness. I gasped, clutching the ledger to my chest. Daniel cursed under his breath and turned on his phone's flashlight. "Stay here," he muttered. "I'll check the fuse box." I watched his shadow disappear down the stairs. For a moment, the attic felt alive, the walls whispering, the wind clawing through cracks in the wood. I sank onto the floor, clutching the book. Then something caught my eye, a loose board at the back of the trunk. I hesitated, then pried it open. Inside was a sealed envelope, brittle and stained with time. My name was written on it in Robert's handwriting. Hands trembling, I tore it open. "Anna, if you're reading this, it means I didn't make it back. The money isn't gone, it's safe. I moved it into a private account for Daniel's future. Grace knows the details. I had to keep it quiet until the investigation ended. Please, don't hate me. I only wanted to protect you both." My breath caught. Grace. Of course. She knew everything. She was the one handling the company's books back then. She must have withdrawn the money after his death to protect it, or maybe to hide it. And when she moved away, she took the truth with her. I stood up, heart pounding. "Daniel," I called. "Daniel, I found something." No answer. "Daniel?" Still nothing but the howl of wind and rain. Panic surged through me. I grabbed the candle from the table and rushed downstairs. The living room was empty. The door to the basement where the fuse box was stood wide open. I stepped down slowly, my candle flickering. "Daniel?" From the darkness came a soft scraping sound. "Daniel, it's me. I found a letter from your father." No reply. Then the light flickered across something on the floor, muddy footprints, fresh ones, leading not toward the fuse box, but deeper into the storage room at the back. My heart hammered. "Daniel?" Suddenly, a voice came from behind me. "What letter?" I gasped and turned. Daniel was standing there in the stairwell, soaked, pale, holding his flashlight. "What are you talking about?" "Your father's letter," I breathed. "It explains everything. He moved the money himself. Grace knew she must have been the one who took it later." He frowned. "Grace?" "Yes. Your aunt. She knew the truth all along." Daniel's face shifted confusion, then something else. "Mother, Aunt Grace died 2 weeks ago." I froze. "What?" He nodded. "I saw the obituary in the paper before I came here. Heart failure. No living relatives listed." The candle shook in my hand. "No. Then how did this letter end up here after all this time?" Daniel stepped closer, his face tense. "Let me see it." I handed it to him. He read it silently, his brow furrowing. When he finished, he looked up, his voice trembling. "If this is real, then she took the money." "Not you." Tears filled my eyes. "I told you, Daniel, I didn't do it." "I never did." He nodded slowly, almost dazed. I need to think." He turned, walking back toward the stairs, the letter still in his hand. As I followed him, I noticed something strange. Another piece of paper had fallen from the envelope onto the basement floor. I bent down to pick it up. It wasn't another letter. It was a receipt dated 2 weeks before Robert's death. It was for a key duplication service, and on the line marked "Name." There was a signature, Grace Henderson. The candlelight flickered against the receipt in my trembling hand, the ink smudged but unmistakable. Grace Henderson. My sister's name, my husband's secret lover. The one person who had always hovered between us like a shadow. And now, even from the grave, she was tangled in our ruin. Daniel was pacing upstairs when I climbed back up. His face was pale, eyes wide with confusion and something else, fear, maybe. He held Robert's letter tightly, reading and rereading it, like he was trying to decide whether to believe in ghosts or in me. "Daniel," I whispered, holding out the receipt. "There's something you need to see." He took it reluctantly. The moment his eyes caught her name, his jaw tightened. Grace, she had the duplicate key? I nodded slowly. She must have had access to the safety deposit box all along. Maybe your father trusted her to handle the money after his death. But instead of protecting it, she hid it. Or worse, she used it. He stared at the paper in silence, then sank into a chair, running his hands over his face. All these years, I blamed you. My heart softened, but I didn't move closer. You had every right to question me, I said quietly. I never told you the whole truth. I wanted to bury it all and keep you safe. But lies don't stay buried, Daniel. They rot and rise again. He looked up at me, tears shining in his eyes. I wanted to hate you, Mother. I built my whole life on hating you. It was easier than missing you. My throat tightened. And I let you. For the first time in 35 years, silence between us wasn't filled with anger, it was filled with pain, raw and human. Then Daniel took a deep breath. Tomorrow I'll go to Crestview and open that deposit box. Whatever's inside, it'll end this. Once and for all. I nodded. I'll come with you. But he shook his head. No, I need to do this alone. I barely slept again. I sat in the kitchen till dawn, the envelope and receipt beside me, the storm finally calming outside. The world felt still, but my heart raced like I was standing at the edge of something terrible. At sunrise, Daniel left. He didn't say much, just that he'd be back by evening. I watched from the porch as his car disappeared down the road, a streak of red in the fog. Hours passed. I made tea but didn't drink it. I folded blankets, cleaned dishes, opened and closed curtains, anything to keep my hands busy while my mind screamed. When dusk began to fall, I stood by the window, waiting for the sound of his car again, but it didn't come. Instead, just after sunset, the phone rang. It was Sheriff Miller again. Mrs. Henderson. I think you'd better come to Crestview. My knees went weak. What happened? He hesitated. There was an incident at the bank. The world went silent. When I arrived, red and blue lights flashed against the marble walls of the small-town bank. People whispered near the steps, umbrellas bobbing in the drizzle. I rushed inside, my heart pounding like it might break through my chest. Miller met me at the door, hat in hand, his face grave. "Anna," he said softly, "he's all right, but he's shaken." "Daniel?" He nodded. They found something in the deposit box, and then the alarms went off. He collapsed before he could even explain. I covered my mouth. collapsed? He's conscious now, just resting in the office. I pushed past him. When I entered, Daniel was sitting in a chair, pale, his hair damp, his eyes vacant. On the table before him lay a stack of papers and a sealed envelope stamped with the bank's emblem. "Daniel," I breathed, running to his side. "What happened?" He looked up at me, voice hollow. "You were right. It wasn't you." I frowned, sitting beside him. "What do you mean?" He pointed to the papers. "It was Dad. He faked the theft. All of it. The missing money, the company collapse, everything." I froze. "What?" He picked up the top sheet, a letter written in Robert's unmistakable hand. His voice broke as he read. "If anyone finds this, know that I made my choice. I took the money. Grace helped me set up the account. We planned to leave, start over somewhere far away. But I couldn't do it. I couldn't face Daniel's eyes, knowing I'd ruined him. I'm sorry, Anna. You deserve better. Tell our son I did it for him, though he'll never understand." My hands shook. He planned to run away?" Daniel nodded slowly. He must have had second thoughts that night. Maybe he tried to come home to confess. Maybe that's why he was driving near the creek. Tears blurred my vision. All these years I thought I lost him to an accident, and all this time he was already gone before the car ever hit the water. Daniel stared down at the letter, his lips trembling. "I hated you for nothing." I reached out and touched his hand. "No, Daniel. You hated the pain, the loss, and so did I." For a long time, we sat there in silence, just the hum of the fluorescent lights above us and the faint sound of rain against the windows. The sheriff quietly left us alone. When Daniel finally spoke again, his voice was soft. "There's more." He reached into his coat and pulled out a small envelope, the same one from the box, addressed to him. He opened it slowly, then handed me the note inside. It said, "Son, by the time you read this, I'll be gone. Don't let the truth destroy your mother. I failed her, not the other way around. Protect her when I no longer can." The room tilted. I pressed the paper to my chest, sobbing. "Oh, Robert, you coward, you fool." Daniel leaned forward, resting his head in his hands. "He wanted me to protect you, and I came here to destroy you." I brushed his hair back like I used to when he was a boy. "You came for the truth, Daniel, and now you have it. We both do." He looked up at me with tears streaming down his face. "What do we do now?" I smiled sadly. "We forgive him, and we forgive ourselves." As we left the bank, the rain finally stopped. The sky broke open into a pale wash of silver and rose, like morning was trying to make peace with the night. Daniel took my arm gently as we walked down the steps. For the first time in 35 years, I didn't feel alone. But as I looked back toward the bank, something caught my eye, one last paper that had slipped from the folder. The corner of it bore a name and a number. It wasn't Robert's, it was Grace's will. And beneath her signature were the words, "To be delivered to Daniel Henderson upon my death. The truth about your father." A chill ran through me. I turned toward Daniel, my voice breaking. "There's still more, Daniel. She left something for you." He looked at me, stunned. More? I nodded slowly, my heart sinking again. This isn't over yet. The drive back home was quiet, but it wasn't the kind of silence that tore us apart anymore. It was heavy, expectant, the kind that waits before another truth reveals itself. Daniel held Grace's will tightly in his lap, his thumb tracing the embossed edge of her name. The streetlights flickered across his face as we passed through town, each one catching the flicker of pain, guilt, and something else resolve. When we reached the house, the rain had finally stopped. The air smelled of wet soil and pine. Daniel placed the envelope on the kitchen table between us, both of us staring at it like it might explode. "She wanted me to have this," he murmured. "After she died." I nodded. My heart thudded painfully. "Then open it, Daniel." He hesitated, then slid his finger under the seal and broke it open. Inside was another letter written in Grace's familiar looping script. My hands trembled as he began to read aloud. "My dearest Daniel, if you are reading this, I am gone. I know you've spent your life searching for answers, and I can't leave this world without giving you the truth. Your father did take the money, but he didn't die by accident. The night of the crash, he came to see me. He said he couldn't go through with our plan. He wanted to return home to you and Anna, confess everything. I was angry. I followed him when he left. When I reached the creek, I saw the car veer off the bridge. I swear to you, I didn't mean for it to happen, but I was there. I was the one who called the sheriff, but I never told them the full story. My body went cold, the room swayed, Daniel's voice faltered, but he kept reading. Anna didn't kill him. She didn't even know the truth. I told her it was an accident because I couldn't bear her hatred. I forged her signature on the bank withdrawals to keep the police from digging deeper. I thought I could protect her, but all I did was destroy everything. Tell her I'm sorry, and tell her I loved him too." Daniel's voice broke on the last line. He set the letter down slowly, as if afraid it might crumble in his hands. The ticking of the kitchen clock grew louder, sharper, every second slicing through the thick silence that followed. I pressed a trembling hand to my mouth. Grace, my own sister, all those years of guilt, shame, and suspicion, and it was her, my blood. I sank into the chair, tears spilling down my cheeks. She let me live in hell, Daniel. She watched me suffer all these years, thinking I'd done it. Daniel's jaw clenched. She thought she was protecting you. Protecting me? I whispered, shaking my head. She destroyed me. She took away my son, my life, everything. He stared at the letter, eyes full of grief. And now she's gone too. The house groaned softly around us, the weight of 3 decades pressing against the walls. I could almost hear Grace's laughter from the old days, echoing faintly in my memory the way she'd braid my hair, how she'd steal glances at Robert when she thought I wasn't looking, and now, even in death, she'd left one last scar. Daniel stood and walked to the window, staring out into the dark yard. "So it was her," he said quietly, "all along." "Yes," I whispered. "But your father? He was no saint either. They both betrayed me. And yet, somehow, I'm the one who's been carrying their sins." He turned back to me, eyes glistening. "You don't have to carry them anymore. I looked up at him, the boy I once held in my arms now standing tall, scarred, but no longer lost. "And you?" I asked softly. "Can you forgive me for letting you grow up without the truth?" He walked over, kneeling beside me. "You're the only one I can forgive, Mother. You're the only one who never gave up on me even when you thought I hated you." I reached out and cupped his face, my tears falling onto his hands. "I never stopped waiting, Daniel. Not one single day. For a long time we just held each other. The house was quiet except for the soft hum of the rain starting again outside, like the world itself was weeping with us. Later that night, after Daniel went to bed, I stayed at the kitchen table, staring at the two letters, lying side by side, Robert's confession and Grace's truth. Between them lay 35 years of silence, misunderstanding, and wasted life. I thought of all the nights I had cursed myself, all the prayers I had whispered into the dark, begging for forgiveness for something I hadn't even done. And yet, in a way, maybe I had killed him, not with my hands, but with my anger, my pride, the bitterness I never let go of. We'd both failed him, Robert and I. We'd failed each other. I rose slowly, walked to the fireplace, and tossed both letters into the flames. The paper curled and blackened, the words turning into sparks that drifted up the chimney and vanished. The past didn't need to be carried anymore. It needed to burn. The next morning, the sky was clear, soft blue stretching over the fields like a blessing. Daniel joined me on the porch with 2 cups of coffee. He handed me one and sat down beside me, his eyes gentler than they'd been since he arrived. "What now?" he asked. I smiled faintly. "Now we live, the way we should have lived a long time ago." He looked out toward the old oak tree, the one where he'd carved his name as a boy. "You know," he said quietly, "I think Dad would have wanted this, us sitting here. Peace." "Maybe," I said softly. "But peace isn't something he gave us. It's something we have to build ourselves." He nodded, and for the first time, I saw my son, not the angry man who came to accuse me, but the boy who once built tree houses and promised he'd never leave. We sat there for a long while, the sun climbing higher, the world quietly breathing again. The ghosts had finally gone still. Then, just as I thought the story had ended, Daniel reached into his jacket and pulled out one last folded paper, the corner of Grace's will. "There's one more thing," he said. He handed it to me. I unfolded it carefully, my heart pounding. At the bottom, below her signature, was a single handwritten line added in faint blue ink. "To my sister Anna, forgive me. The truth you'll never believe. Robert survived the crash. I helped him disappear. The world stopped. I stared at the words, reading them again and again, my pulse roaring in my ears. "No," I whispered. "No, that can't be." Daniel's voice was barely a whisper. "Mother, what does that mean?" I couldn't answer. My hands shook violently as I clutched the letter to my chest, my mind spinning. Grace had lied even in her last confession. Or maybe this was the final truth she could only admit when she knew she'd never face me again. Robert, alive. A part of me wanted to scream, to tear the paper apart. Another part wanted to believe it, because if he lived, then maybe everything I'd lost wasn't truly gone. But then another thought chilled me to the bone. If he had lived, why had he never come back? I looked out toward the horizon, where the sun burned gold through the morning mist. "Daniel," I whispered, my voice trembling, "we're not done. Not yet." He turned to me, his eyes wide. "What are you saying?" I looked down at the paper, the ink shaking in my hand. "If he's alive, I need to find him." The wind stirred the porch curtains as if the house itself was listening. The story that had haunted our lives for 35 years wasn't over after all. It was only beginning again.